Hi, my name is George, and thank you for selecting Clarity Senior Care as your senior care education provider. We strive to give you unbiased advice and insight to help you navigate your senior care needs. The information provided in this module has been gathered through many interviews from caretakers in the field, as well as through personal experiences of decision makers involved in the senior care process. In this video module, we will seek to give you an understanding of whether an independent living facility or assisted living facility makes the most sense based on the unique healthcare or lifestyle circumstances of your family. In this specific module, we will approach the differences between independent living, or IL for short, as well as assisted living, or AL for short, purely from a healthcare perspective, and will not take into account the financial and budgeting considerations between choosing an IL or AL facility. For an understanding of how to pay or budget for an independent living or assisted living facility, please refer to the intermediate video module section of our website. After receiving many questions from people that have visited our site, we wanted to make clear the distinction between an age-restricted apartment community and an independent living facility before we progress on this video module. Although we have a dedicated module which discusses the differences in more detail, the key differences between the age-restricted apartment community and an independent living facility is that an age-restricted community typically has a younger and healthier resident, as these communities usually have a 55 years of age or older age cutoff, and typically do not have any medical staff available on premises. This differs from an independent living facility that usually has some medical staff on site and typically have residents that are older in age than an age-restricted apartment community. Now that we have made that clarification, let's move on to the rest of our video module. So let's begin. Once again, without considering the cost of independent living and assisted living, the easiest way to determine whether an IL or AL facility makes the most sense for your family is to answer several questions that pertain to the individual in need of care. After answering the questions, you will be able to get a sense of the considerations that align with the profile for that of a typical independent living or assisted living resident. So the first question to consider is whether the prospective resident can take care of themselves on a day-to-day basis. Specifically, can the individual bathe themselves, feed themselves, and run errands without any issues? If the individual is relatively independent and is in good physical and mental health, then an assisted living facility is likely unnecessary. In fact, the individual just described is unlikely to require an independent living facility and should be able to live in the comfort of their own home without any issues. However, when considering an independent living facility, one needs to take into account quality of life and lifestyle, and not just an individual's current healthcare condition. For example, perhaps an individual recently had a spouse or close relative pass away. The potential sense of loneliness stemming from a lost spouse or relative could eventually weigh on an individual's physical or mental health. Along these lines, it would behoove one to weigh potential independent living options in order to avoid the physical and emotional toll that a sense of loneliness can have on an elderly person. It is interesting to note that an elderly person should potentially consider independent living facilities even if they are in great health, as it is truly a blessing for an individual to have the peace of mind and be in good enough physical health to use the later stages of their life to meet other seniors that have similar interests and life experiences. On the other hand, if an individual is not very independent and requires a great deal of care from either a loved one or a health aide, an assisted living facility could make the most sense. An assisted living facility would be the ideal healthcare setting in comparison to an independent living facility. If an individual recently recovered from a traumatic injury and would therefore need to be supervised or cared for very closely. The final question to consider is whether an individual's home requires a great deal of maintenance. Even if an elderly person is in the best healthcare condition, that individual would still have trouble taking care of a home that required a great deal of care. Now just imagine if that elderly person was in a less than ideal healthcare condition, yet had to either maintain the home themselves or pay for someone to do it. Without getting too much into the financial details regarding the cost of owning a home, we can understand that it may not be worth it for an individual that is relatively unhealthy to stay in their home and pay for the associated cost to live in that home. To this extent, it may make more sense to enter an independent living or assisted living facility depending on the health condition of the prospective resident. Once again, for more information on how to pay or budget for an independent living or assisted living facility, please refer to the intermediate video modules section of our website. Obviously, there are many questions to consider when determining whether an independent or assisted living facility is the ideal setting for an individual. However, these two questions seem to be the most commonly asked when families are deciding between the two senior housing settings. Thank you once again for selecting Clarity Senior Care as your senior care education provider. We truly hope the information provided in this module was informative and has helped you gain the knowledge and insight to make informed healthcare decisions. Please do not hesitate to contact us via our chatbot if you have any questions associated with the senior care process. And please feel free to check out our other senior care related modules in the beginner and intermediate video module sections of our website. Finally, if you or a loved one needs immediate consult regarding any aspect of the senior care process, please feel free to call us at 1-800-818-8710.